Look at this syringe. If you were sitting in a dentist chair in 1987, your comfort relied entirely on the practitioner's absolute control over this exact instrument. The anesthetic has to be injected incredibly slowly, demanding flawless fine motor skills. Dr. Bruce Kaplan was administering an upper front tooth injection, his thumb hooked carefully through that metal ring. A staff member appeared at the door to ask a question. He turned his head for a second. When he looked back at his patient, his thumb was completely out of the loop. He hadn't felt it slip. He hadn't felt anything at all. He managed to finish the procedure and then the rest of his scheduled patients, working with a terrifying level of hypercaution. The patients never noticed the difference. But he walked out of his office that day knowing he could no longer safely practice general dentistry. A microscopic misfire in the nervous system erased years of rigorous medical training in an instant. The physical capacity to do the work vanished, taking his primary professional identity down with it. To understand how a healthy 30-year-old doctor suddenly loses the feeling in his hands, you have to look at the years leading up to that morning. Kaplan survived a year-long licensure process, bought into a dental partnership, finalized a painful divorce, and proposed to his future wife. Think of the human body under stress like a sealed container accumulating pressure. The intense, compounding weight of these massive life events creates the ideal biological environment for a dormant chronic illness to finally breach the surface. The warning signs were actually there 6 years earlier. During his 3rd year of dental school, Kaplan noticed an unsettling numbness in his toes. He stopped taking an over-the-counter weight loss supplement, the symptom disappeared, and he closed the case without ever seeing a neurologist. At 24, multiple sclerosis wasn't even a passing thought. But now, at age 30, that past ignorance was replaced by pure terror as he watched the numbness actively spread from his toes, up through his body, and into the fingers he relied on for his livelihood. Disease progression rarely starts with a sudden, unprompted collapse. It sits quietly in the background, waiting for the compounding pressures of daily life to exhaust your physical defenses before it makes itself known. This chart represents the expected career path for a medical professional. You endure the grueling years of school, build a practice, and watch your income and security compound over 4 steady, uninterrupted decades until you retire on your own terms. That is the reality most of his classmates experienced. But when an illness enters the picture, that momentum shatters. The line abruptly drops and flattens out, illustrating the severe economic penalty of being forced to abandon a career and start over from zero. Desperate to stay in his field, Kaplan trained in a specialized subset of dentistry focusing on temporomandibular disorders, or TMJ. He ran a new practice for 7 years. But TMJ has a very limited patient base, and the relentless, draining fatigue of MS made maintaining a profitable, highly specialized clinic impossible. He then tried to piece together a living outside the clinic entirely. He opened a medical leasing division at a computer equipment company, took a job with a dental practice management firm, and did a short stint consulting at a dental lab. This is the precise mechanism of a progressive disease. The physical limitations are devastating. But the true toll lies in the quiet, exhausting labor of continuously rebuilding a collapsed professional life every time your body forces another pivot. By age 44, most professionals are entering their peak earning years. Kaplan instead enrolled in chiropractic school. He planned to focus on instrument-based adjustments, a technique that would allow him to treat patients without placing extreme physical demands on his own compromised nervous system. He pushed his failing body to complete a rigorous 4-year medical curriculum in exactly 3 years, graduating as valedictorian while actively managing his chronic condition. Look at this gridlock. Every day began at 6 a.m. to beat the morning rush, but the afternoon drive home meant crawling through endless Los Angeles traffic for an hour and a half. He was burning through severely limited energy reserves, forcing his family to carry the collateral weight of his absence and exhaustion. He opened a new office and bought specialized equipment. Then a severe economic downturn hit. Patients willing to pay out of pocket wanted traditional, physical chiropractic adjustments, not the specialized instrument techniques Kaplan offered. His body was giving him less capacity each year, and the contracting market simply wouldn't sustain the business. Human determination is an incredible force that can temporarily override severe physical limitations. But eventually, even maximum willpower cannot outrun the unforgiving math of a deteriorating body and poor market timing. Medical journals do an excellent job of tracking myelin degradation and muscle spasticity. They are completely unequipped to measure how a human being actually navigates 45 years inside an incurable condition. In these photos of charity walks and community events, you see exactly what Kaplan spent years hiding from. He refused to say the words, "I have MS," out loud, terrified that associating with other patients would force him to look directly at his own inevitable physical decline. But the disease failed to dismantle his core foundation. It never touched his marriage to the woman he proposed to the year of his diagnosis. She became his editor, his co-pilot, and the person who finally handed him the vocabulary to articulate his struggle. It also failed to erase a clinical mind sharpened by decades as both a patient and a doctor. His 2 children grew up only knowing a father with severe physical limitations and daily challenges. Rather than breaking them, that environment built a deep, grounded sense of empathy and a refusal to take an easy life for granted. A patient's medical file is essentially an inventory of loss, but a life is actually defined by the solid, unshakable variables that remain standing after the storm clears. Today, the dentist who was once too afraid to speak the name of his disease is done hiding. He uses nearly half a century of clinical and personal experience to actively educate the exact community he once avoided. An invisible illness possesses the terrifying power to dictate the physical path you must walk, but it lacks the authority to set the final ceiling on your character or your capacity to build something entirely new out of the wreckage. I ask you, what about your own trajectory? How has a chronic condition, an invisible struggle, or a sudden loss quietly rewritten your professional life and extracted a cost that no one else can see? We rarely get to choose the heaviest burdens we are forced to carry, but those exact limitations will often force us to build a much deeper, more durable kind of resilience.